Let's bring in Zander here, co-host of Birds 365.
What's up, Big Cells?
They do a great job in the morning giving me topics too now. Just absolutely great stuff in the morning there. A lot of good people, a lot of good conversation. I hope everyone checks it out every single day here. Let me throw this at you here. You brought this up. New responsibilities. Maybe not a new offense in 95%. What do you think that means when you're hearing new responsibilities? I brought this up. Reading defenses. Does he have to now set protection? Blitz pickup. Pre-snap reads. Is this what we're talking about?
It's the first thing I think about. I think about the stuff Kelsey did, right? And then I also think about, we had Thomas Mott on the show this morning. I'm sure everybody in the chat knows Thomas Mott. He has a big YouTube channel. But anyway, he had a really good take on what Kellen Moore is going to bring, where it's 2 years ago, Hurts was throwing the ball around. Last year, he kind of got rid of that part of the game. Kellen's going to make him be that full encompassing quarterback where he's throwing the ball to the middle of the field. He's getting the ball to the backs. There's motion in the offense, all these little things. I think that's going to be a big part of what he has to pick up as well, but also the things you said about Kelsey as well.
So do you think that Shane Steichen and Kellen Moore are a lot alike, or do you think they're completely different in how they got the best, or what they're going to get the best out of Hurts? Shane Steichen got that job, like somebody said earlier, because of the play of Jalen Hurts, which I completely agree. And I think that played a factor in Anthony Richardson being drafted to the Indianapolis Colts. So do you think he's going to look like that, Kellen Moore, in 22? Or how is he going to look in 24 here with Kellen Moore?
I think the whole thing has to be about making Jalen more of an all-around quarterback. He can throw the ball to the backs. It's like I said, throw the ball in the middle. All of those things. I don't know if he's going to be exactly like Steichen. I think that would be our hope, right? I mean, we went to the Super Bowl with Shane Steichen. Jalen Hurts was an MVP candidate with Shane Steichen. So I think Kellen's going to take a lot from that offense, right? He'd be dumb not to take from that offense. So I don't know if they're going to be too much alike, though. I think Kellen is more maybe set in his ways because he's been doing it a while. Remember, that was like Shane's first 2 years as a play caller. So he kind of adapted a lot to Jalen, which was a great thing. I think that's what every offensive coordinator should do. I'm hoping Kellen can be that, but you know, I'm the more I sit and I watch and I look at Kellen's past, I actually think he's going to be the right fit if Jalen can comprehend what he's asking him to do. And that's going to be the big if.
If he can
if Jalen can do what he's asking him to do.
Do you think it's going to take more than 1 year for him to remember something too? To be fair, you made a great point the other day. Steichen had 2 years.
Yeah. I mean, how long is it going to take realistically without even being able to criticize him? How long is it going to take for this offense to be on the same page?
Again,
8 weeks,
36 days to camp.
I mean, they don't get much off-season work. So Correct. What do we have? 8 weeks, 8 ball games, 10 ball games until they're even on defense. Everybody's excited about Vic Fangio. I mean,
don't you think Hurts will be better in 25?
Yeah, one of our best chatters in here. What's his name? Twiz, obviously Twiz. I don't know if he's in here right now. He's normally always in here, but he's been saying that. He's like, rip off the Band-Aids, let these guys learn in 24, 25 is our year. And I don't want to go there because that just dismisses that this season's going to matter.
Oh, I think he'll be way better in 25.
Talking about Kellen?
I'm talking about Hurts.
Because
I'm bringing up all this. Like, he's got to learn to do something that he hasn't done in 3 years. You know what that is? Setting pass protection.
Yeah.
So he has to come to the line of scrimmage, Zander, and he's got to be able to do this. Is it an odd front, even front? That's just the first, whether we're talking about how you're setting up odd, even fronts and pass protection. Then if they move in play, is he audibling out of it? Okay, what's my pre-snap read? Is it the free safety, strong safety, or are they bringing up a mic? What am I doing? Oh, wait, they just moved the strength. Then you got to talk about talking about progression reading. If they slide the defense to a strength or weakness, if you're on one hash or the other, he's got all. This is before you even throw the ball. This is why I say I agree with Twiz. 25 is where you're going to see the kid probably a little bit better and further along in his development.
Yeah, and you could say that for a lot of players on this team, but you're spot on about 25 being a year. But I mean, are the expectations of the team in 24 going to allow us to smooth sail into 25? You know, I mean, we are going into a year right now where if they don't succeed by whatever metrics Jeffrey Lurie has for the team, by whatever standard that he wants to achieve, we're going to have a whole new coaching staff. Because if Nick Sirianni gets fired this year, you could almost guarantee Kellen Moore will be gone too.
Will Vic be gone?
Well, who?
Vic.
I don't think so. Would
they fire the entire coaching staff?
Yeah, but if they hire a new coach, is he going to want a new coordinator?
Yeah.
Most do. Defensive too. So
yeah. So well, it depends on what kind of coach. If you go by the Eagles' way of hiring head coaches, they will hire a guy who's never had a head coaching job before, because that's just how they hire, which means they'll have more autonomy on picking the coordinators, because that's why they're able to do that. You see, if you hire a Belichick's going to hire his own OC and his own DC. Or if you hire a Mike Vrabel, they're going to hire their own OC DC. But if you hire a first-year guy, you're going to have more say in that.
See, Chuck says Vic is a one-year guy. I view Vic as them trying to get back to a Jim Schwartz type of defensive coordinator, an older guy. You don't need to go and find the young next great. Find an older guy, potentially can be here for 3 or 4 years and retire here, and you can get some stability on defense. That's how I view Vic, but it's all up in the air, because if they don't succeed this year, we are at risk of a whole new regime, right? A whole new whole thing. I mean, coordinators, assistant coaches, everything. So that's why I think there's a lot this year on, a lot on Nick, but really a lot on Jalen Hurts too, because I've been saying the team's going to go as far as he's going to take us. And if he takes us far, we're going to get stability going into 25. If he doesn't, this thing's going to get wrecked.
You know, you made a comment yesterday about, hey, Sills, it's June 17th. I made a point to you about leadership about Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, it's now coming out that he missed minicamp because he wanted to go smoke pot over in Europe. And he wanted to go to one of those a forward-thinking drug places for him to have whatever it is. I don't know. And I said, like you said the other day.
Story. What did Aaron Rodgers do?
Well, it's going to come out. That's what it is that he went over to Europe. He went to those places with that stuff that he did in the tent or in the cave, and he's going to be like smoking. Yeah, he went over to Europe.
All those weird drugs and shit like that.
All that weird stuff. And so that's why he missed training camp, and it was a predetermined date. And it's going to – the Jets don't want to say what it is. That's it right there. That guy Michael says it. Ayahuasca. That's what he's doing. Yeah. Natural LSD.
Yeah,
that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, I know what it is now.
So he's missing training camp so he can get high. Anyway, I said this to you. I go, so, okay, that's a guy's personality in 20 years that never changed. And it's the difference between Brady and Aaron Rodgers is right there in a nutshell. Even though Rodgers is more talented than Brady, gifted as a skill set. What makes you think that Jalen is going to change his mentality, his way of thinking on June 17th versus September 6th, where they're going to be the same guy? He's not going to change his leadership skills in September. He's going to be the same guy he is June 17th. So
but outside of last year, Jalen's leadership wasn't a concern for anybody. Outside of last year, I mean, even back to his college days and his young pros. That's when everybody talked about the intangibles and all. Yeah. Now last year he had his first bit of real, adversity, and it didn't look great. And I've continued to say you have to be a different guy in different moments, and I don't think Jalen showed that, and that was not good for me. Everybody's giving him a hall pass. I don't know why our fans love to give people a hall pass. Guys making $55 million, which is just stupid money, and he can't stand up and be a leader in moments. Now, I don't know what happens behind the walls of the locker room. Maybe he is a better leader than he appears to be, but he doesn't appear on the outside to be a great leader. He appears almost, I don't want to say selfish, but it looks selfish, if that makes sense. Like, he doesn't really, I don't think he has selfish tendencies, but he does seem to, it's Jalen's way or the highway, no matter what.
Can I make a comment? You think the front runner is a little bit too strong?
The thing you were talking about earlier in the show?
Yeah, front runner. Things are going great. He's great. Things go bad. He's got no answers for.
I don't want to call him a front runner, but you're right. I mean, it's tough to dispute that, right? Because last year was the first year in Jalen Hurts' tenure as the full-time starter that there was real adversity the roster was great, everything was going great, and then you lose however many games, one for 7 in the last, and he didn't really do anything about it. And I already vouched for I already told everybody yesterday to go rewatch that Bucs playoff game. It'll piss you off again to your core. Yeah, you bring up a good point. I mean, I'm hoping that I'm hoping he learned from it. That guy, what's the guy's name? Daniel Bigelow or something. He brought up a good point about maybe Jalen learned from it. But I mean, he was also wrong in that Jalen has dealt with adversity before. Jalen dealt with it at Alabama. I thought he handled it beautifully at Alabama.
I did too.
I thought that was the best case of leadership I've ever seen from Jalen Hurts in his career. And it was a beautiful thing. I thought it was tremendous.
Yeah, I did too. But
this is where I wonder about the money thing you said yesterday. He didn't have a $255 million bag of money in Alabama. He was working toward that.
You know, Boomer Esiason
he was working toward that. Last year was the first season he played with that money.
Boomer Esiason came on our program and said the one thing he's going to have to do is learn to play with that contract. Yeah, I didn't know what that meant at the time. I really didn't know what it meant. But then I saw the New England game last year, and I saw the business decisions for the first time probably in his career where he was starting to make business decisions for his career. And it made me think a little bit that, wow, so is he a different guy now? Because let me tell you something, Zander. When you get to the pinnacle of getting your contract and you get that NFL helmet, you have a different mindset. It's like, what do I do next? How do I handle myself as being a collegiate athlete, being a professional athlete? It's night and day because you have so many people around you. Right. And you have to kind of close the room a little bit and close the circle a little bit. So I think he's dealing a little bit with that. Now, with that said, let me ask you this topic. Do you think the front office, and what questions do you think the front office has right now heading into 24 on? And you know what? I want to make this clear. Hey, you think there's an issue in Cincinnati with Joe Burrow? Yeah, stay healthy, kid. Will Joe Burrow be able to stay healthy to fulfill his destiny? I don't know. Will Josh Allen be smarter in Buffalo? Yeah. I don't know.
Can't turn the ball over, right?
So everybody, they just gave Trevor Lawrence $55 million. I'd be like this. Will that guy ever live up to that? Because that's quite a number. You're the highest paid guy in the league. Will you ever live? So for when I say this to Hurts, it's not just a Philly thing, but if you're the Philly front office right now, after 3 years, what are some of your concerns with him going into this season?
Well, I think leadership has to be one of them, or at least not even forget the word leadership.
How about better teammate?
Handling the business of football. That's been a theme this offseason, right? Talking about the business of football, handling the business of it, handling a new coordinator, handling your head coach, handling the media, all of those things. I think that's a big part of it. And I hate to say this, everybody's going to be mad at this. I think ability. Kellen Moore I've said it when Kellen Moore was first hired. It's sink or swim for Jalen Hurts because Kellen Moore is going to force you to be a traditional quarterback at times. Can you do it? Will you be able to meet the demands of Kellen Moore with this high-powered offense? You have everybody around you need to make it work. You have a top 5 offensive line, arguably a top 3, top 2 offensive line. You have maybe the best tandem of wide receivers in the NFL in Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. I don't know another team that has 2 potentially top 10, top 15 wide receivers. I think A.J. Brown's top 3. And you have a tight end. Now you got Saquon Barkley. I can't give you any more. So if you're not going to be good in this offense, I don't know what more can we ask here? Like, what more can we do? And Kellen Moore is going to force that out of him. So that would
What
be
do you
my
think
biggest
success
concern.
looks like then?
I'm not as caught up in the stats as I am about what it looks like. Like in 22, when you turned on an Eagles game,
With what it looks like, they had that concern with Doug. They're concerned how this thing looks. They remember they're an optics organization. I'm not saying I do think they want to win. I
no, I
do.
know what you're saying.
If they
I know what
want to
you're saying.
win,
But how'd that thing look
looking
in
good.
22? How did that look in 22?
Exceptional.
You turned on an Eagles game when you were like, these boys can play.
Yes.
Jalen Hurts can play. You turned them on last year, even when they were winning. It was
Up and
like,
down.
ooh, they're struggling along. They're
It was wobbly.
exactly wishy-wash. So I think that's going to be one of the things as well. They need to see him show it, and you need to look competent. You have offensive weapons everywhere. You got to look like you can get them the football. Like everybody criticizes Brock Purdy, especially Eagles fans. That guy did everything asked of him and more. He got the ball to his playmakers. He went all the way to the Super Bowl, and he put up a battle versus the Chiefs. Like, he looked
delivered.
confident doing it. Everybody's like, why would you pay Purdy? I would pay Purdy. If I was the GM, I would pay Purdy. Now, I would probably try and get him a little bit lower than $50 million, but I would pay Purdy, And I think Jalen's got to show that. He has to look the part. He needs to look like he belongs as the quarterback of this team, because I don't see another quarterback with this many weapons.
Except for Purdy. I mean,
you think Purdy is better cast?
What's that?
You think Purdy is a better cast than Jalen?
I think
offensively. I'm not talking about full
Jalen
team.
has the best cast. I think Jalen has here. If I'm going to look at the differences between the two, who has the two better receivers? Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk versus Devontae Smith and AJ Brown. Philly wins that. I think Philly wins it by a little bit more than what I would tell people what they think. I don't think it's close. I think it's they're a 10.
And he's got the better tight end. And he's
Purdy's got the better tight end.
And he's got the better running back.
Better O-line.
Jalen's got the better O-line. Purdy's got the better running back. Yeah, I mean, they're comparable. They're right there. So it's a good comp in terms of, see, I don't want them to turn Jalen into Purdy, but he's got to look the part like Purdy did.
See, Purdy, get this, like you said, Purdy to me comes off as a guy more like Brady, and Jalen comes off more like a guy like Aaron Rodgers. And what I mean by that is he's got more gifted talents about him naturally than what Brock Purdy does. That's why he was drafted later like that. Yeah. However, he knows how to spread that ball around. And there's also a key component that Kyle Shanahan knows where to go and how to set defenses up better.
But you're also not giving
never had a coordinator that was really great at setting defenses up, because you know what that RPO is? It's a decision-making offense. It's decision-making, whereas when you're in the drop back like Purdy, that's progressive rating. But Kyle's helping you move safeties around, linebackers around, edge rushers around, so you can find strength. I think he's got more teaching Brock Purdy and San Francisco than what Jalen's had in his last 4 years.
Yeah, and I think you're, to be honest with you, Dan, I think you're understating Purdy's role in that. I think Purdy doesn't. That's one of his strong suits. He drops back. He knows where to go with the football. And if he doesn't know, he makes the decision quickly. Jalen has struggled with that. That's why he does the boom, drop back, roll to the right when there's nothing there. He's been doing that since he's been here. That's his go-to. And then when you took his legs away a little bit, it started to look crappy. Then he started taking a lot of sacks because he was holding on the ball too long. Purdy's good at that. Jalen's going to need to be better at that. Eventually, he's going to have to get this defensive thing down.
You know, one of the things that I thought that made Purdy so effective was the fact that he had 40 starts at Iowa State.
Yeah.
I mean, he played a lot of ball up there at Iowa State. And even though, again, he just came in as a little bit more seasoned, where Jalen had been. I mean, Jalen's gone through so many different offenses and so many different styles and so many different types of play callers. I wonder what they're thinking. How about this here? Think about this when you think about front office, thinking how they're looking at him. Do you believe right now, when they look at Jalen Hurts, that the 2000 season, the 24 season, is going to dictate how they move forward with him?
I think potentially. I mean, if he shits the bed, what are you going to do? You can't move on from him with $100+ million cap hit, can you? I don't think they can. So what are they, I mean, they're in a tough spot, man. Like if Jalen doesn't show up this year, they better hope he's not the problem. They better, in fact, if you're the Eagles, you better hope it's Nick Sirianni is the problem. You better hope it was Brian Johnson that was the problem. Because if it's Jalen, you got a much bigger problem on your hands than replacing a coach or replacing a coordinator. I mean, what do you do if he underdelivers this year and he has 20 turnovers again, and the team is 9-8 with this type of talent? What do you do?
To me, it would depend on how you quantify failure. If you're quantifying failure, get beat in the playoffs and you win 11 games and you were a game out of winning the NFC East, I'm going to be more apt to come back with him. I'm not moving off of an 11-win guy.
No matter what, brother. They're coming back with Jalen Hurts next year.
No
matter what.
Now, if you have 6 wins, we're in a big problem.
They're going to be back with Jalen Hurts, whether he has 4 wins or 12 wins. It doesn't matter. He's going to be back. They're just going to – the Eagles are going to do what they do, and they're probably going to frame it up to make it look like it was all the coach's fault. They'll create their scapegoat, which they've already set up in Nick Sirianni, like they did this year with Brian Johnson. They'll push him out the door, and they'll hope the next guy can get it right with Jalen Hurts. But
so you think Nick's been set up?
Well, that's why I said to you yesterday, I think Nick is starting to understand this might not end well for him, and he's doing things now to take back control of his destiny, maybe post-Eagles life. You know, that's why I'm starting to wonder, maybe it was Nick Sirianni that brought in Kellen Moore. I know we've talked about we don't think it was him. John tells me it was him. I'm still here, right? You're here. John's here. I'm still in the middle. I'm starting to lean toward, I think Nick brought him in, but for different reasons than other people are thinking about.
How about this? I went back and read that John McMullen article.
Yeah.
And, you know, he has a track record of handing over authority. Nick. Look, you know me, I don't want to give this guy an inch. However, now whether we think it was upstairs, Nick, he still had to go without me resigning or whatever, bitching about it. Right. He had to give it to Shane. And he thought it was in the best interest of the team. Maybe he did this too, dude. Like he said, we talked a little yesterday about it. Hey, maybe, you know what? My relationship with Jalen, I'm just not connected. Hey, you know what, Zander? You can like a guy and not connect with a guy. It doesn't mean that you don't like the guy. It's just that somebody hears you more and hears you more clearly because they speak your tone and they speak your language. Right. Maybe Kellen Moore was hired for his communication skill set, that being able to deal with a personality. Doesn't Dak and Jalen kind of look kind of like the same guy? They're not going to be verbose. They're not going to overspeak. They're not going to talk shit. They're kind of introvert kind of guys. So to me, I think he's bringing more of a communication skill set in that Nick went like this. Hey, you know what? Maybe this guy will communicate better with him than I can because I'm too emotional. How many times do we see on the sidelines, Jalen put his hand down, doing this? That's not Hurts. Kellen Moore is not a rah-rah guy either. So I started doing this. Jesus Christ, I hate to give Nick Sirianni any kudos in any way whatsoever, but maybe he went like this. Hey, maybe Kellen Moore could communicate better with him. And he's and get this, you know, maybe Cliff Kingsbury, they brought him in to take a look at him because he communicated with Mahomes. You know, he communicated with Caleb Williams last year when he was at Southern Cal. Maybe he was looking at guys like that, said this to Howie. Hey, you know, Kellen Moore, because he was fired. The Eagles could have had the pick of the litter on who they wanted to bring in, but they picked a guy who was fired. So to me, it has to be that they hired that guy because they felt he could communicate with Jalen a little better. Am I off base on that?
No, I mean, there's no way to obviously prove it, but I think you're onto something. And if you are right, I would say that's a good look for Nick Sirianni. I think that's
what I mean. That's a good look for John's article.
Right. You're going to put your ego to the side and you're going to make a decision that's best for the football team. Now, I do think partly might be true is that he understands that last year he was able to scapegoat Brian Johnson. This year, if it doesn't go as planned or they don't meet expectations, Nick will be the scapegoat. I think in this circumstance, he looks better than if he was still manning the offense.
But I think
So
he's accepted that.
I do too. I do too. And that's why he probably did the things with Kellen Moore, and he did he made the changes he did. And now the one thing that's weird is, his opening press conferences of the summer were basically
Weird.
blatant lies.
And off base.
Yeah, they were basically blatant lies when we're meshing the offenses. And then, so that's why I wonder, who's somebody's lying. It's either him or Jalen. Remember, Howard Eskin kind of disputed what Jalen said. It's 20% new. It's not 95% new. 95 was always a lofty number, by the way. That was an embellished number to make a point, I think,
Why
by the
would he
quarterback.
embellish? He doesn't seem like a guy who embellishes shit, though.
Yeah, well, he wasn't asked anything about that question. That was a John McMullen question, and he asked him something. I don't remember exactly what the question was. I wish I did. I'm sorry, I don't. But it was completely different. And then Jalen, a guy who doesn't
95%,
a guy who doesn't speak much up there starts going off on this is 95% new and all these things. And I'm like, he clearly wanted to get that out there, So it's almost like both of these men, Jalen and Nick, are operating with their own best interest in mind. And you can almost see the fracture there. I don't want to make too much of it, because I guess if they start winning ball games, who cares, right? I mean, winning cures all. But can they win with this type of setup? We shall see.
Let me do some football stuff here. What about, it's now coming out of New York that Reddick lied to Joe Douglas, saying that he would never miss any of the mini camps, or he would never miss any of the training camp or what have you, when they were negotiating with him. And all of a sudden now it comes out where he doesn't show up to any of the OTAs. He's actually showing up to minicamp, and it's being reported in New York right now. He's not going to show up to training camp on July 25th.
Buying that, though?
What?
Are you buying the story? Because to me, I read it. It sounded like a team planted story that wants to get leverage on a player.
Then trade him.
Yeah, but did the Jets lie to Hassan when they traded for him too?
No,
did they said they were going to pay him. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I
read that story, and I'm like, he
open.
lied to you in trade negotiations about coming to summer stuff. No, he didn't.
I just think his agent is just misread the room here, man. It's all.
I don't know if it's on his agent.
We're all over the place here.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible. I don't know. I never had a problem with Hassan Reddick. I was a big fan of him when he was in Philadelphia. I thought he delivered the goods. I thought he was a good player. I thought he showed up when we needed him to show up. But yeah, I don't know, Dan. I didn't like that story, to be honest. To me, it read like if somebody burnt Howie would go to his minions in the media and make a slant. And that's kind of how I read that story, that the Jets were trying to create.
Do you think the Jets leaked that out?
I don't know I'm not saying they completely made it up, but I think they planted the story to kind of try and get back leverage over Hassan Reddick, who's probably now going to have to answer for it. Did you lie? All these things, and it makes him look worse as a player. And it makes him look worse as a guy who's vouching for a new contract, vouching for more money, so I don't know.
Well, I'm going to say one more thing about Reddick, and I'm going to say it again. There's no market for him because he's one-dimensional, and I've been saying it since day one. I'll tell you, Zander, on certain teams, he's a really great football player, but on marginal defenses, he's a liability. And that's why he's been replaced 3 times.
He wouldn't be a liability on that Jets defense.
He wouldn't.
That defense is built for a guy like Hassan Reddick.
Great.
Yeah. And their back and their cover guys are amazing. So he's going to have a little bit more time to get to the quarterback. I mean, that defense is built for a guy like Hassan Reddick. I thought when the trade went down, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. The Jets, he's a good fit in New York. I don't know. I don't want to buy too much into it, though, to be honest with you.
Let me go over here to one player. Is this the final year of Dallas Goedert?
I don't think they want it to be, but I think naturally it might be.
25% of his career he's missed every year for an injury.
Yeah, and he's got a lot of talent. He doesn't really seem to be.
And he makes 15.
Which is where in tight end rank?
Third
highest paid tight end.
Third highest paid tight end in the league.
Behind Kelsey and Kittle.
Behind Kelsey and the guy Kittle.
Yeah, I don't see everybody.
He's a highly compensated guy.
I got a lot of shit in the comments a couple weeks ago when I said I thought Goddard was overrated. I think he's a great player. I think he has more talent than Ertz, but I think Ertz was a better player when you add up every piece of the pie. I think Ertz contributed more. I mean, maybe I have eagle-colored glasses. He was a contributor on the Super Bowl team, but I mean, I think Goddard would be a great player with a quarterback like Purdy, or with a quarterback like Brady, with a quarterback like Mahomes. These guys spread the ball around so much. What is he, the third option at best?
At best.
You could argue this year he's going to be the fourth option with Saquon Barkley. You could even argue he's the fifth option because Jalen Hurts prefers himself to run the ball or to create a play.
I don't think there's a place in that offense that much. I don't think there's a place in that offense for him.
I don't either. Now, he does do a lot of other stuff. That's good. He's a physical guy, aggressive, good blocker, and
he's
stuff.
He's not paid for his blocking. He's paid to catch and block.
He's not. You're right. Is this the last year of his deal?
I think he's got either one more on it. He may have one more. I thought this was the end of that deal, but I don't think he's one of those expiring contracts. I think they gave him a little bit more, and I think there's 2 years that he has. I think there's 2 years this year and next year. I think they have still on that deal.
I'm curious, Jam, if you could tell me what that is. He says, look at the offensive stats when Goddard doesn't play. I'd love to see what they are. I don't know exactly what they are. Does our offense suck without him?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Actually, they lose a lot more games when he's not out there because the middle of the field is not covered.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he does. You ever notice he misses games and stretch runs when they need him the most, too, especially the last 2 years?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely the last 2 years. He misses important games, big-time games. And, I don't know. I would like to keep him because I think we need a great tight end. But is somebody going to offer him a bag of money in the open market that will use him better? I don't know. He's also decently old. He's almost 30 now.
How about this one, too, Zander? I would say this, that Jalen Hurts is the worst of all quarterbacks in the last 23 years that doesn't know how to get the ball to the tight end, where traditionally Philadelphia Eagle tight ends since 2000 have been the prominent force in many of those offenses. He's the only guy that doesn't get the football to him. I think he's a 1,300-yard guy, but still, I think the injuries concern me more and the utilization. You're not going to utilize him a lot in RPO. You're just not. That's not going to be something. And last year's offense couldn't find him. And then when he got hurt, that took the middle of the field, which became more predictable. So I think this is a big year for him.
Yeah, but even when Goddard was out there last year, Hurts didn't go to the middle of the field. That's where I really think.
Remember, he complained in the week 2 or 3 last year. Goddard going, "Hey, I'm really glad that I'm involved in the run game, but I'd like to be involved more in the passing game."
Yeah. I'm
paraphrasing here, but he actually said that.
Yeah, that's where I wonder if it's just he doesn't fit in this offense. I do like the player, though. I think the player is good. I like the way he plays. I love football players that play physical. He plays very physical. He got hurt on a freaking stiff arm last year. But that's the other thing, right? The guy gets hurt way too much. You're nothing to us if you could be the best tight end in football in the NFL. If you can't stay on the field, though, then you're no help to us.
How about this question here? Wide receiver 3. They have gotten in the last 3 years nothing out of that position. 0. There's been no impact.
In fact,
you're actually going out there with 10 guys.
The impact's been negative because there's been big moments where the wide receiver 3 has dropped the football.
And to expect that position, and I'm not looking at that position to be a high performance position. I'm looking at it to be a competent position. It's not a competent position. What do you do with that?
It doesn't look like they have a guy on the roster right now that's going to be overly competent. I think.
So you don't think the third WR is on the team now?
Well, I think he's on the team because I don't think the Eagles are going to go outside and get somebody. But if you're asking me if I'm happy with who it is, no, it looks like it's going to be Paris Campbell.
Who?
Yeah, Paris Campbell. He's an all right player. I think he'll be okay, but he's not an impact guy. He's not a guy like you just said that has an actual impact on the game. So. What is he going to be? And then you also get into you need him, right? You need a wide receiver 3 because it opens things up for other guys. But
you use that position to make yourself less predictable.
Right. But you have A.J. Brown, you have Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts. Now I'm at wide receiver 3. That's my 6th option. Eagles just don't care. I don't think they're prioritizing it. Remember, they're spending $175 million in this offense. Not going to be able to have everything. I don't
No.
think they're going to prioritize it. I think they're going to go with Paris Campbell or one of their rookie 6th-round picks.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about a star. I'm talking about competency. Just being
Yeah.
competent
I
at
mean,
the
they drafted 2 receivers, though. They like their draft picks. That's what their philosophy is. They're going to try and give those guys a chance. I think Anaya Smith might be okay in the slot. He's struggled really early on. It's only spring, but he struggled a lot down there, dropped a lot of passes. And then I kind
Why
of
don't
like
they move
that.
Devontae and AJ around more?
I know he's a 6th-rounder, but I kind of like the Johnny Wilson dude.
That 6'7" kid from
That
FSU.
6'7" dude. And I think it would be a big target for Jalen. Almost like another tight end playing wide receiver 3, though. I don't want him to play tight end. A big ass target for Jalen right over the middle of the field. You know, it's like, Jalen, you can't miss this dude. Freaking put the ball in his hand. I think they might go with him just because they prioritize their draft picks, but we'll see. I don't think they're going to go for somebody. I really don't. After AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, that receiver room is atrocious. But I mean, your top is good. So what are you gonna do?
How about this? Last question for you. Do they need a red zone back?
I think Saquon could be that. I think Saquon can be a good red zone back. Remember, he's been with the Giants. He hasn't had a whole lot of opportunities to showcase things like that.
Well, you're asking him to do an awful lot. Pass protect, red zone back, be your 20 touch
he's
guy.
one of the highest paid running backs in the league. He's going to have to do a lot.
Okay. Well, you're talking about a guy who hasn't been healthy for the last 6 years.
If they were willing to bring in a bruiser back, I would say yes. Like if you want to recreate what you had on the Super Bowl team, where you have LeGarrette Blount as the second, and he's that big bruiser, somebody like that, and you keep Saquon as your number 1, that I like. Now that was a whole different team. We had undrafted free agent Corey Clement. He was a huge impact on that team. He had a touchdown in the Super Bowl. So that running back room was a lot different, but I'd like them to get back to that. I'd like them to get back to a versatile running back room where you could have a guy where you're not relying on Saquon for everything. But does it look like they're going to do that? I mean, they drafted Will Shipley and they're talking him up. He sucked at Clemson. He wasn't even good at Clemson. Like everybody's telling me what the potential of him is. He wasn't even good in college. Why do I think he's going to be good in the pros? Kenny Gainwell is what he is. Looks like they're going to keep this crew, though. I mean, they like it's clearly a style of a back, right? Kenny Gainwell and Will Shipley are like very similar players. So I don't think they're going to add it back, but you bring up a good point. I'd like them to get a bruiser back, maybe that plays in the goal, that plays down in the red zone. But are they going to do it? Are they going to invest more resources in the running back position? I'm doubtful.
How about this? Well, the resources in 17 weren't out of hand.
No, but they were.
Like Garrett Blount kid from a Jai. I don't believe they
traded for Jai midway through the year that year, and he was a big impact. You had Jai, you had Corey Clement, who was an undrafted guy making sub $1 million probably that year.
So you can build it,
and you had LeGarrette Blount. See the thing with those though, that's 3 different types of backs, all 3 different.
Right?
Ajayi was more versatile, jukey, shifty, that type of runner. LeGarrette Blount was your north to south guy.
I think they got 3 of the same guys back there. I think this group is 3 of the same guys.
That's what, yeah. And I don't think that's a great thing, but they love this style of running back. And the other ironic part of it is Jalen Hurts doesn't even like that style of running back. He has never shown that he wants to throw the ball to backs. Never. Not even in his early days in college. He never throws to backs. So why do they keep getting these versatile backs? Just give me a bruiser. Like, that's why we talked about the Derrick Henry thing, and I don't want to go back down that road, but I would have loved him in Philly.
Man,
I think he would have.
Behind that O-line, he gets.
I'd be real high on this offense if they had him, because I think that would take real pressure off the quarterback.
Jalen could throw the ball 10 times, and they'd get the 1,700 yards out of that guy. Get Dalvin Cook.
Get Dalvin Cook.
I don't know what left he has. I mean, it really looks like Minnesota made the right move by moving off him. But I want to finish it up here with this. So 22, you had Miles Sanders, Boston Scott, and Kenny Gainwell. In 2024, you have Barkley, Kenny Gainwell, and Shipley. Do you have a better running back room now than you did in 22?
What was it? It was Sanders, Gainwell, and who?
It was Sanders, Gainwell, Boston Scott.
Boston Scott, that's right.
You got Shipley, Gainwell, and Barkley now.
Well, then the only difference is, I think Saquon's a clear upgrade from Miles Sanders, I would say. So that's a win. and Gainwell's the same, and then you had Boston Scott over Shipley. Yeah, I think this year is probably better just because of Saquon. But overall, that was still a more versatile back room in 22.
So you think it's that much of a bigger gap between Miles Sanders and
Right. I think
Barkley? You think there's a huge gap there?
Yeah, I think the gap is big enough that it's a better room now. But again, that doesn't address my point about the running back room not being versatile enough. And 22 is a little better, but even 22 wasn't the greatest room
He had
either.
1,300 yards and 13 touchdowns.
Yeah, but what do you do in the Super Bowl?
I know you hang your hat on that. I'm talking
Well, I
about
do,
what he did.
That's when it matters. Like
games to get
go watch the 2017 Super Bowl that we won and look at how important those backs were.
I get it, but Zander, you can't dismiss 1,300 yards and 13 touchdowns either.
Well, yeah. Do you think Saquon's not going to be able to get that? I think he's going to get that.
Those are his highs in his career. Playing on a lesser team.
New York, Dan. Come on.
I got it. Hey, but he was also 21 then.
Yeah. You could argue Saquon has a lot of tread off the tires right now.
Right. And he's got an injury. He's got 2 injuries in the last 4 years. So, I mean, look, I think that running back room and receiver 3. If you lose Barkley, you're not getting anything out of 3. God forbid Goddard gets hurt. That's what makes you unpredictable. That's why when you say Kellen Moore spreading the ball around, this is why Jalen struggled last year. Get this. They didn't throw the screen passes, like you said, because they didn't have the versatility in the backfield. I thought Swift was going to be better than that.
Swift would have been better than that. They didn't use him. This is where Underdog is 100% right on this. Jalen wants to replace the backs from the quarterback position. He prefers himself to keep the ball.
But the organization doesn't prefer that.
Well, the quarterback's the one out there saying hike and getting the ball in his hands. So
Jalen changing plays. Okay.
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying he's opting to not go there. And I think it's because of the style of quarterback that he is. It's weird why they keep going with this type of running back, but that's what they're doing. Is there a LeGarrette Blount type in the league right now? We could have got somebody put it in here. AJ Dillon, he was out there this year. I forget who it was.
Was that the kid from Green Bay?
But he's a north and south guy. That would have been a good red zone back, right? I mean,
somebody
like that. That's what you want.
I don't know if those backs are out there like AJ Brown, or AJ Dillon and guys like that any longer. I think San Francisco has a fullback that's a Pro Bowler every year. Okay. I think they have one of those guys out there, but they don't really use that position. I think Barkley is going to be the key component in how this offense is going to look and how his impact is going to be on Hurts. If his impact is minimal and they can't find a way to get him the ball, I think you're going to be as predictable as ever.
Yeah, but isn't his impact on Hurts entirely predicated on how he's used in the offense?
Yes.
So how is he going to be?
That's on Kellen.
What do you think he's going to be? What is your perspective right now, without seeing anything, how they're going to use Barkley?
I think Barkley's going to be a 900 yards, 600 yards receiving, 550, and he's going to have like 15 touchdowns. He's going to be a cheap man's version of CMC. And
I don't like that.
And he's going to do the most important thing that struggled last year with every back you had. He's going to be enormous in blitz pickup.
Yeah, his pass protection is going to be good.
The pass protection with him. So you have a problem with 1,500 total yards and 15 touchdowns?
I don't think he's getting 600 yards receiving, Dan. Where are you getting that number?
You've got to implement him that way. So you think he's getting 1,600 yards rushing?
I'm not saying that. I just don't think he's getting that type of. Where have you seen in Jalen Hurts' career that he's going to throw the ball to a back for them to amass 600 yards?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the coordinator you're bringing in is going to do that because they did it with Tony Pollard.
Yeah.
Tony Pollard not used as a pass-catching running back.
The catalyst, though, is not Kellen Moore. I mean, he can try and draw it up. The catalyst is the quarterback. Hurts has the ball. He's
Well,
going to choose what to do.
Well, here's then if you're going to go by the way you're talking, not thinking, I don't think. You've averaged almost 1,300 yards the last 2 years and over 10 touchdowns. And that means for guys that get the ball 225 times. Okay? Are you suggesting Barkley's going to get the ball 250, 275?
No, but wait, if Miles Sanders ran for 13, ran for 1280 or something like that.
Yeah, it's like the fourth highest number in Eagle
DeAndre Swift ran for about the same, maybe a little bit less. You don't think Barkley has the ability to do that? I do.
I didn't say that. But that's not an upgrade. Zander, that's not an upgrade.
That's a different question. So,
okay.
What about situational impact?
600 yards receiving and pass protection is an upgrade. Him rushing for 1,200 yards is not an upgrade.
What about situational impact?
Okay. Keeping it, okay, 3rd and 1, I'd rather have Barkley than Miles Sanders.
Yeah, and I'm even talking about the course of the whole year where it's like if we can use Saquon as a bell cow when you have a lead on teams going into the second half, that to me would be a good impact because you might be able to close out more games that way, right? Not have to rely on Jalen Hurts constantly to run the ball and to do everything. That would be a great use of Saquon Barkley. I like red zone because I think he's going to be good in the red zone. I really do.
Are you going to run him a lot early or late?
I think they're going to try and get a lead and run them late. I really do, right? I mean, that seems to be what they try and do on offense. And that means you're going to have to rely on Jalen to get the lead.
22, they ran the ball early on you, got a lead on you. And when you looked up, how many times you looked like, remember you and I were going like this, Xander? We're watching a ball game. You look up, there's 2 minutes left in the first quarter. You're like, holy shit.
Right.
They just burnt that entire first quarter off. And the other team had the ball for 8 plays.
Yeah. And they do that a lot. Yeah.
They didn't do that last year.
I mean, I think early, but I think where his impact is going to be late in terms of closing out the games. But you are right. I mean, traditional NFL offenses run the set up the pass. Even Kellen Moore, right? Kellen Moore loves play action. You don't do play action for the opening play of the game, or you know what I mean? You run
or
and
at a shotgun.
Right. So we will see what they end up doing with Saquon Barkley.
So Warren here is like, hey, I'm good with 1,000 rushing and 500
but Warren, they're not going to throw the ball to him enough for him to get 500 passing yards. Unless he has a 90-yard sweep a couple times this year.
Yeah, but that's who he is. He's a dual threat guy.
Yeah, but our quarterback doesn't throw the ball to the running backs.
So that means then that they didn't utilize DeAndre Swift, and the Bears see that and they knew it, and that's why they gave him $9 million.
Let me go look at the stats. Let's go look at the 23 stats real quick. How many receiving yards did
263, I think. On like 36 catches, I think he had.
Yeah, DeAndre Swift had 214 yards
something like
receiving. Now, Kenny Gainwell also had 180. So maybe that's 400 right there.
400 yards.
That's
how many catches total between the two?
Gainwell had, let me find it, 39 and 30, so 69 catches.
Dude, that's your wide receiver 3 right there.
Less than 100 targets to the running backs.
That's pretty impressive.
Let me look at
79 catches between two dudes, running backs. This is why wide receiver 3 is not utilized. That's a lot. I didn't add.
Are you ready though? Ready?
Yeah.
22, the year we went to the Super Bowl. Our leading catcher out of the backfield was Kenny Gainwell. He had 169 yards. Miles Sanders had 78 receiving yards in 2022. 78 receiving yards. 78 receiving yards for your running back one. And 170 for Gainwell.
And here's why. You had 1,300 yards rushing from Sanders, and you had 880 yards from Jalen Hurts. So you basically had 2,180 yards and 24 touchdowns between the two. You've never recovered that number since 22. Think about that. You had 2,000 yards rushing between two dudes, the quarterback and Miles Sanders, and 24 touchdowns in 2022. Hoss, you didn't have to throw screen passes. You were running people over.
It's true.
Yeah, I mean, there lies the difference. The Eagles in 22 didn't pass people to death, Zander. They ran people over.
Yeah, Hurts only had 3,200 yards or whatever it was, or 3,300 passing yards.
Right.
Yeah,
They ran people over.
So are you saying they should get back to that?
Yes.
I do too, but do you think they're going to get back to that? No.
And see, this is why, get this too, Zander, but this is why it creates the Eagles are creating more problems and more questions for Hurts, where you don't need to have the questions for Jalen, because Jalen is so dynamic. Bro, I promise you, if you guys were coaching him the way you coached him in 22, I would have a completely different attitude about him. And I think so would a lot of other people have a completely different attitude. But when you're, like you said, you're trying to make him into a guy that's like Joe Burrow or Mahomes, you're going down the wrong road here.
You think they're going down that road? I mean,
They
I don't
did
know.
last year.
They didn't really last year. I mean, he was a lesser quarterback, but I wouldn't say he played ball like those guys did.
No. But he had more passing attempts.
Yeah,
which
a lot
is
more
more high
passing
turnover attempts, which led to more interceptions.
Yeah.
In 2022, he had 430 attempts. Last year, he had 540 something attempts. You increase the opportunity of turnover because you want a high prolific passing game. And you know what? When you look at the two receivers, Zander, I swear to you, when you look at Tua had 4,600 yards passing, okay? And two 1,000-yard receivers. You're like, that's the number. Yeah, I've never seen a guy under 3,900 yards before with 2,000-yard receivers 2 years in a row. I've never seen that.
Yeah, it's very predictable. It's predictable where they're going.
Correct. If the quarterback can't go to wide receiver 3, he can't get to the tight end because the guy's either hurt or they don't have him in the offense, and they're not throwing screen passes.
Yeah, but
here's how they're going to be better. They're not going to be better with Devontae and AJ. They're going to be better with Goddard, wide receiver 3, and also the backs being a factor in the pass screen game. And if that's not a fact, you're going to be the same guy throwing to the numbers again.
Here's the problem with this. I don't think they want to go back to the 22 style because it took so much off Jalen Hurts.
You went to the Super Bowl.
I know, but did you pay a guy $50 million to be that?
Yeah. Super Bowl guy like that in 22? Absolutely.
I'm not as much talking about the results.
I didn't pay $50 million for that thing.
I'm less talking about the results and more talking about the player. I think they are so focused on justifying, or maybe it's Jalen or whoever it might be. They're not going to go to a style where Jalen Hurts is not. We ran teams over in 22. Yep. Jalen Hurts doesn't get credit for that.
Oh, I give him credit. He had 880 yards that year.
Yeah, I just don't think they want to go back.
Dude, he was your red zone back.
Yeah, he was. Do you think they're going to go back to that though?
No, nope,
they're not.
Nope.
So it's like,
right. You're getting further away from your favorite year with him, 22. This 24 year, you're going to get further away from that.
But can we mesh 22 and 23 and make Hurts better?
Now, I brought this up earlier. Here, and I promise I'll get you out of here after this one. But this is what, for me, Zander, could it be that you have him with 8 carries and Barkley has about 18 to 19 to 20 carries in a game, and his yardage is more like this? They're more productive because you said something really good the other day. You said Hurts' numbers in 22 were more effective than anything he did in 23. You're right. They were more effective because it was third and short. He was a weapon. And could his yards be less attempts, but more impact? Absolutely, because of the influence of Barkley. That's going to take a lot. And that's why when everyone is sitting here telling me 2024, this thing's going to be in a snap, I'm saying, dude, 25, is going to be the year where you're going to see all of this hitting on every cylinder. This thing's going to be a bumpy ride, and the bumpy ride may cost jobs in September.
Which might cost 25.
It will. It will set them back.
That's what I'm saying.
If they're not patient, and you don't, and if that front office is not patient, they weren't patient a year ago, Zander. You were 10-2, and they started firings before the season even ended.
Which apparently, I mean, it's reported that was really Nick.
So you think Nick walked in the office after Monday telling everybody in the press conference that he had all the coaches he needed in the building, and then on Friday he fired them?
Evidently, it was Nick. I don't know. I'm not in the room.
Remember, he said that? Was that same week on Tuesday?
We've talked to, I mean, I don't know. I guess reporters don't know everything. I'm not saying they do, but I'm just saying it is reported that Nick was the one who made the decision to move on.
They probably told him to fire him.
I don't know. Apparently,
because Tuesday he came out on the press conference and was asked explicitly the question, "Hey, do you look for any changes being made on your staff?" He goes, "No, we have everyone we need in the building." These are almost verbatim, everybody we need. By Friday, Desai was out. How do you go in 2 days? Then you're doing fumble drills on Friday for everyone to see.
Apparently, the front office, though, and the owner didn't like how he handled Sean Desai. That was one of their criticisms of him. That was one of the things they wanted him to work on. It's also part of the reason that they liked his philosophy to bring in a new offensive coordinator, somebody that mans the offense, so he can be better at in-season, in-game decisions. That was a brutal decision, whoever made it. Brutal.
Derailed the whole team.
It was stupid. It was stupid. Think about it. Why did they get rid of that guy? I didn't even like Sean Desai.
Right.
The Miami Dolphins dropped a 70 burger.
Mahomes. He had beaten Allen. He had beaten Dak. He had beaten Stafford. He had beaten Mayfield. He had beaten all those teams. And so what? You lose to the Niners and the Cowboys.
And he beat Miami. I know Miami is not great, but they put up a 70 burger.
They beat the brakes off them.
They put up a 70 burger, and then they came to Philly or wherever I think we played them in Miami. They didn't do shit that game. Sean Desai locked that offense down. So I'm not even saying Sean Desai was that great, but why not just see the season through?
It was a flamethrower to the entire season.
Also, now we have a bunch of other unanswered questions where Jalen Carter was arguably the best defensive player on the Eagles, and then he dropped off a cliff.
By far, head in the Rookie of the Year. I thought it was a slam dunk.
It was a slam dunk, and then you change coordinator, and now everybody's like, "Oh, he needs his conditioning better." I'm like, "Well, he does, but was it the coordinator switch? Was it going to Matt Patricia?" Hassan Reddick hated Matt Patricia. Josh Sweat fell off a cliff. Jalen Carter fell off a cliff. Now it's a team game.
Reddick.
Right, it's a team game. I'm not, everybody's got to perform no matter what, right? I mean, I'm not going to blame it on one thing, but it certainly looks like that was a variable.
You think Patricia was hired by Nick?
I don't know. I guess.
Hey, why don't you just come because maybe they were playing AFC East teams last year?
Yeah, but why go to him as the defensive coordinator?
Yeah, no. I just that whole thing was weird. Inexperienced coaches, and you hire the pencil who hates Slay. It just was the whole thing was, and then you bring the coach back. He's the only, he made all these decisions, like you're saying. So he fired Desai, which derailed the season at 11-1. You were still in the race for home field. So Zander, isn't that a fireable offense?
Dude, we would have won home field if we just beat the Cardinals and the Giants.
One game, right. Cardinals and Giants who had a combined wins of 6.
Yeah, it was like ridiculous.
Well,
yeah, I don't know, man. I feel like this team is not in as good of a spot as we're thinking they are, but
is it mentally? It's not physically. They're in a good spot physically. They're not in a good spot. I think how about this? They're in a questionable spot mentally.
Wait, can I bring up what Angelo said yesterday?
Sure.
What did you think of that? Because his entire spin and the whole thing was that we should be praising Jalen Hurts for that type of talk. And it's all about Nick. And there's no onus on Jalen at all. And to be frank with you, I respect Angelo a lot. I thought that was total. I thought that was total bullshit. I didn't buy that for a soul second.
Why do you think it was bullshit?
Because I don't believe you can just pay a guy $55 million, put him on the press conference, and he can bash the head coach. You can hate the head coach. You can think that's the truth. For you to put that in the media, for you to do that way publicly, derails your chance at success, whether you like Nick or not. It was a dumb thing for Jalen Hurts to say. And I'm not even a Jalen Hurts hater. I like Jalen Hurts. I think we can win with Jalen Hurts. I think he can bring us to the Super Bowl and win the game. Did I think that was a good move right there? No, I thought it was dumb and childish, to be honest.
I think two comments can be looked perceivingly different at particular times of the year. And I'm not trying to waffle this, you know me. But you're right, and I think he's right. But here's what the problem becomes. On June 17th, you said that, and Angelo said that yesterday. Yeah, you're trying to bring uniformity. Like I told you with Aaron Rodgers going and smoking weed or whatever he's doing in Europe.
Yeah.
Even if you don't want to do it, you have to bring continuity into your organization, even if you don't fucking want to.
Well, that's my point. Yeah.
Right. However, during the season, if we're not playing well and we're not coaching well, I want my quarterback to say something at that time. So to me, I think it's situational. And this comes back to
he did it in reverse then. By your logic, he did it in reverse. Because he didn't say
wrong
shit.
timing.
And the one time he did during the season, he walked it back.
Because he was told to.
Exactly.
Right.
So you're going to say that now when it's not the time to say it. And then when it is time to say it, you're going to sulk on sidelines?
I think it was wrong timing.
Terrible
timing. I think he should have been more of a team guy at that time yesterday, or when he said that and said, look, man, we got to be all together here. We got to do this and that. But I want my quarterback, when fire is going on right now around me and I'm in a foxhole, hey, fucking get your head down, man. Hey, we need to coach better. We need to play better. And I don't want any walking back. So to me, you're not wrong. I just think Jalen did that at the wrong time. He didn't need to do that then. He needed to do that during the meltdown last year.
I agree.
See, I think
look, there's a couple comments in here, and I don't even have a problem with these comments, honestly. I really don't. He's telling you he doesn't believe in the head coach. Get him a proper coach. Hurts was being honest. This head coach is a knucklehead. I'm with you guys. I don't think Nick is great. Do you really think that the leader of the football team saying that in June was the right move?
No.
Chuck, answer that question.
No, I don't.
Nathan, answer that. Pete, Nathan, answer that.
There's no football being played.
It was stupid. It was a dumb comment by me.
You're in helmets and pajamas. I mean, no. When you're in the fire, I think that shit has to be said. Not
also, and if he hates the head coach,
this goes to leadership, though, dude.
If he hates the head coach so much, walk into your owner's office, say you paid me $55 million a year. You're not paying Nick Sirianni that. This guy's a clown. Maybe he did do it, but he did it publicly, which would tell me that he didn't really do that. Or maybe the owner didn't listen to him.
That's right.
That's plausible, but I don't think you need to do that publicly.
Do you think the general manager, maybe not the owner, but do you think the general manager on an exit meeting had a private meeting with Jalen Hurts and asked him how he thought the season went?
I would imagine.
Okay.
Right? I mean,
how do you think Jalen would have answered that?
I don't know. I mean, he definitely said it didn't go good. They collapsed. I think the problem.
Doesn't it come off where he's a guy to kind of make excuses?
Well, yeah, because is Jalen not responsible for any of the collapse? I mean,
if you listen to people in here, no.
Are we seriously going to sit here and tell ourselves that the guys inside the lines, the guys hitting each other, the guys taking the snaps, the guys throwing the football are at less fault than the guys holding?
No, player accountability in me is number one.
I don't understand how we can do that. Look, I didn't like Brian Johnson either.
Well, Jalen got him fired too.
Yeah, and Jalen, and that was another point somebody brought up. It's like, I think it was 97.5. It was that Tyrone guy on 97.5. He's like, you think they didn't rub Jalen the wrong way when they fired Brian Johnson? When Nick fired Johnson, that rubbed Jalen the wrong way. That's his lifelong friend. I'm like, Jalen got Brian Johnson fired, not Nick. Jalen did. Jalen was the one executing the plays.
Just like Josh Allen got Ken Dorsey fired.
Listen,
absolutely. Player,
I think
why is that such a tough thing when it comes to player accountability? When it comes to certain guys that they fall in love with, that they can't put that onus on him and say this, hey, he's the one executing the plays. Like you said, Kellen Moore can call up and draw up all the plays you want. The player's got to execute this stuff.
exactly.
Well, when the player doesn't execute, that's on the quarterback too, dude.
I know that better than anybody. People think I'm a Jalen hater because I say that. I'm like, dude, he's our quarterback. We go as far as he takes us. We should want him to be great. And he wasn't in that season. He didn't do anything to turn it around. He didn't do anything to show leadership on the sideline. He didn't execute play calls. Like,
Doesn't that go to my comment that he's a front runner?
Yeah, I guess it does. The play calling sucks. Joseph, the play calling sucked, but the execution sucked, dude. The quarterback calling the plays, taking the football sucked. You can't just – the NFL is not a play calling sport. If the NFL was whoever makes the best play calls all year is going to win the Super Bowl, the season would be over. You'd be giving it to Andy Reid or San Francisco every single year. That's not how it works.
Or McVay.
Right. Good point. The players got to execute here. Like, I think Jalen Hurts is and again, everybody's going to call me a hater.
You're a fan. You're not. You're a fan.
He's got to be a little bit more accountable for the collapse last year. He's the quarterback of your football team. If the Chiefs collapsed down the stretch, would we blame only the coaches and not Patrick Mahomes? If Tom Brady had a collapse, would we not blame any of Tom Brady? If any, add it up. These guys say the same thing about Josh Allen. They hate that you like Josh Allen. You put the onus on him, right? Not all on his coaches. I mean, come on. The players have to be accountable too, especially the guy who's making $55 million, far away more than anybody else on that roster.
I am going to ask you one last one here. Does the collapse matter anymore?
No, it's 24. You got to put it in the rearview mirror. It wouldn't have mattered if they won
Have
the playoff game. Doesn't sound like it.
Right.
Doesn't sound like it.
Your mannerism doesn't sound like it.
No, doesn't sound like it at all. And I told you this. I wouldn't have cared about the collapse for 1 minute if they showed up in Tampa to play the playoff game. The team didn't even show up. They didn't look like they cared. They didn't look like they gave an effort. They didn't look like anything. Now
Look at this guy here, Richard. Can we stop comparing Jalen to Mahomes and Brady? No. What do you want to compare him to? Zach Wilson?
Yeah, right.
I mean, dude, no one's saying they play like Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes, but you want to compare the winning, and you want to compare putting your team into a position to win Super Bowls. That's what this is about. I hate when people do that. Don't compare them to the top. Well, who do you want to compare him to? Baker Mayfield and Zach Wilson? Bro, I'm comparing him to people that are winners, that have won multiple Super Bowls and that are considered the best. Don't you? Or you want us to compare you to Carolina?
Yeah, right.
You can always do that.
Look, I'm not even trying to criticize Jalen Hurts as much as it might sound like I am. I just think there has to be – the only way out is through, right? Like if you're never even able to tell yourself that something I did wasn't right, you can't correct it. If you don't identify a problem, you can't fix it.
Did you hear my comment about how you're coached? Do you actually think those Eagle coaches are going like this to players, Zander? You think they're doing this? Watch this. Hey, these are the things you really do well. Aren't they doing the things that you suck at? And aren't they working at the things you suck at? Hey, you're not very good at this. You're not doing this. You don't get better by practicing what you do best. You get better at the shit that you don't do well. Then you become, with the stuff you do great, you elevate your game because you're only as good as your weakest problems that you have in your skill set. Yeah, not what you do best, because then you become predictable, and in the NFL, they figure that out.
Yep.
All right. I mean, great stuff. By the way, some great stuff. Tomorrow, we're going to have Merrill Reese on, and we're going to congratulate him on winning the Pete Rozelle Award. It's one of the highest distinctions that you can possibly have for a broadcaster. That's going to be tomorrow at around 4:30, I believe, that we're going to get the legendary Merrill Reese. Also, I think you're going to like this one too, Zander. I think on Thursday we're getting Seth Joyner on.
Oh, fantastic. I've been waiting to get Seth
yeah,
back.
I finally connected with him. We had a great conversation, so everything is all good and such. So we're we're working on getting Seth on. If he's going to find time, it'll be around 4:30 or 5:30. So that'll be on Thursday. Great stuff. Hey, brother, where are we on the likes?
Oh, let me check that out.
Guys are killing it. You guys are doing a great job. Hey, by the way, great conversation today too, my friends. Got to agree there.
It's good convo, and I hope everybody, like, I don't really care because, you know, they're going to say what they're going to say, but I'm not even trying to come off as a Jalen Hurts hater. I just think people should be honest about it, because I think that's the best way to fix it, right? Is to be, if Jalen was like, I wasn't my best last year in 23. I'm working on things that I did wrong to fix that so we can have a better team and a better season for the Eagles this year. You know how good that would make me feel?
Absolutely.
But instead, it's been all about everything else. And I frankly, I have a problem with that. You know, perfect example. I do all the things for JAKIB's YouTube. I manage everything. I manage your show, Bird 365. If our channel is sucking, if we're not getting views, if your show starts sucking, I can't just blame you. I'm blaming me. I'm the one who's crafting thumbnails and titles and things and doing the things on the back end. It's anything in life. You have to have accountability to be able to correct things and move forward. And if our quarterback doesn't have that, we're it's not going to be good.
Who do you think has more accountability in how he handles himself, Nick or Jalen?
100% Nick. Nick fell on the sword for them over and over again last year. Nick has a lot of.
I never thought about it that way, but Nick has more accountability for his team than what Jalen does.
Dan, go back and listen to the one AJ Brown press conference after the Seattle thing. AJ Brown was taking accountability. I'll be better. That was a mistake. I'll do this. Jalen Hurts just brushes everything off. I don't love that. That's not particularly my style. I don't think that's good. I don't think that's a way to help.
Think about that.
Fix the problem.
Nick has more of accountability on his team than what Jalen does.
Well, I don't have a problem with that statement, and as long as Jalen's also taking some accountability, because I'm good with the head coach falling on the sword for his players. But when his players have the opportunity to do the same for him, like Jalen just had, and you go the other way, now we're into the conversation of accountability. Now it's
leadership.
You know, the other thing that nobody has talked about, and I know we're going long here, I want to get out of here, but the other thing that this comment highlights with Jalen Hurts is exactly what we're talking about.
Yep.
Jalen Hurts believes last year was entirely on the coaches.
Completely true. Even that comment he made about, I wish I had this in Philly, like, you know, reminds me a little bit of college and this and that. I mean, their offseason comments, his entire offseason has been littered with excuses.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something, Zander. How about this? Have you lost a little bit of respect for how he conducts himself as a professional football player? Not as a man. It's not an indictment. I don't know him as a man. I don't know what he does. I'm not talking. I'm talking how he handles himself as a professional. I've lost not a ton, but I've lost a little bit of accountability, which means to me, I think he makes excuses and he tries to build in off ramps for him and his failures. I don't see that intangible leader.
It's tough to disagree with you. I mean, especially after what we just talked about, where the guy, and look at, like, this is where I don't get, where fans are just delusional. Like, I'm a fan too. Darlene says, wow, y'all are the new WIP. Darlene, are you really going to look at us on the screen? Are you going to listen to this show right now? Think about what happened last year and say, none of it was on Jalen Hurts. Not a single stitch of it was on Jalen Hurts. Come on, man. That's crazy to me. That doesn't make sense to me. I don't get it. Jalen's got to be accountable. And to answer your question, yeah, I mean, you could argue that I'm starting to lose faith in the way he conducts himself as a football professional.
I'm going to make one last comment here, and this is going to be in the weeds. And if you decide not to want to go down this route, go ahead. And I would respect you. However, it's almost like watching Angel Reese a little bit and Caitlin Clark a little bit. And I'll tell you why. We're in like these massive culture wars. It's like you're picking a side versus management versus the quarterback, whatever it is. It's like you pick a side on something here. And no matter what it is, you're going to defend it because this is what you want to defend. No matter that, I say something about like a Josh Allen. Josh Allen got his coordinator fired. Well, Jalen got his coordinator fired. No, he didn't. It was bad play calling. Brian sucked. And you're like, well, why do you defend that guy versus Allen? What's the difference? What's it? And it's almost, Zander, like today, it's like we pick sides instead of looking at the truth of what this is. This is a professional sports team. Everyone is held accountable. No matter what you are and who you are, you're in it together. To me, I think he does a disservice, Jalen, to his head coach
100%.
on a daily basis.
There's
He
no
doesn't
denying
get
that.
killed for that more. And by the way, this contradicts Angelo because Angelo thinks
This
he's
is where I
doing the
thought
right
Angelo
thing.
was wrong. Exactly.
To me, I think he throws his coach under the bus more than any quarterback in the NFL today.
Yeah, and it's not even like he doesn't even have to work hard.
It's not like he's trying hard. He's just doing it.
Well, that's what I mean. It's almost teed up for him the other way. Like, hey,
Yes.
here's an easy bone you can give to your head coach, and he doesn't do it. So yeah, you're right. I mean, I don't know. I get where you're going with the Angel Reese and the Caitlin Clark stuff. By the way, it's great for the WNBA, right?
Oh,
I mean, they got their villain, they got a superhero, and there's so there's a lot.
They're looking at it as a race war thing. You know what I'm looking at it as? This is fantastic. Villain, white hat, the whole thing.
Like you've said before,
I love it.
Part of it. Race sells. I mean, look at what happened. Look at what's happened in our country in the last 8 years. I didn't even know this shit mattered until they started making it matter because it sells.
Race is like, look at the news networks.
Yeah.
It's massive money they make.
Oh, believe me,
hey,
I get it. Yeah.
Trump's a racist. We'll go back after this commercial break. You're like, I mean, you're going like, wait a minute, you're selling that? Oh, okay. I got it now. So no. I mean, I love the whole Caitlin. See, I don't look at it like, I look at it like, what a great selling point. And Angel Reese, the only two people that are handling that situation correctly are Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
They're handling it better than the media are handling it and the WNBA because you know why? It's truly a rival.
Yeah, it's good. It's great for the sport. I hope they don't squander it. The league seems like they're dumb.
Oh, they're squandering it. Oh, yeah.
They're
absolutely imploding on themselves. When everyone was always talking about the 90s play, when those guys were gooning one another, going after one another, talking shit to one another, everyone was like, God, that was so great. Now you have it. And now you're complaining about it. And I'm like, dude, you're looking at this thing wrong. This is a very good selling point. Zander, great stuff. Where are we in the likes, my friend?
153. Good stuff, everybody. 153.
Fantastic. 47 away. Guys, we're going to take a look at the Baltimore Ravens next. Don't forget, Zander's on tomorrow at in the morning with Birds 365 with John McMullen. They do a great job. Thank you so much, Zander.
Thanks, Hills. Appreciate it, brother.
You got it. Keep it International Football Show.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.